Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Erin, and once again it is Friday, and do you know what that means? It is Book Review Friday, and we have a very interesting one to talk about. We are talking about Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell. Now, if you do not know, and you haven't heard of this story before, this was a Reddit no-sleep story that got turned into a book, which I think is just so cool. I love Reddit No Sleep. I think it's an amazing subreddit. I think it's so cool. And just the fact that someone could go on there one day, make a post just to see how it goes, and they get a book out of it, I just think that's incredible. That's just so cool. So honestly, congrats to Felix for being able to make a Reddit no sleep post into a novel. That's just a whole accomplishment on its own. That's incredible. It's awesome. So freaking cool. It's the same thing that happened with Pen Pal by Dathan Auerbach. I love the fact that No Sleep brings me these really cool books and stories that are so unique and different, and I love No Sleep. It's awesome. So, Stolen Tongues, that's what we're talking about. And this is the cover. I think it looks really cool. I really like that the title is written like it's in the snow. I think that's really cool. It's also matte, which I love. I love that feeling. Let's get into a synopsis, shall we? I feel like this synopsis is going to be a little more generic than usual. I do try to give you guys a lot of detail. I try to keep it very within the first 50 pages of the book, so I don't give too much away, but there's just so much to this plot that I can't even touch on like half of it in a synopsis, and it would give so much away. So this is going to be very short and kind of sweet, and just a little baby toe dip into the water so you can get a feel for this book. Felix and Faye are newly engaged, and Faye's parents decide to surprise the couple with a weekend getaway to their family cabin. They thought that the two of them really deserve a small little vacation. Felix is a PhD student, and Faye just started a new job, and they work really hard, so the parents just felt like they really needed a little time to themselves. Especially now with the new engagement, it's just a perfect time for them to finally take a little time to themselves and have a nice little getaway. The cabin is in Colorado, and it sits on a mountain called Pale Peak. It's been snowing, it's very scenic, it's beautiful. It's exactly what they need, something just picturesque that will make them de-stress and have some fun. Everything seems perfectly normal at first, until that very first night that they're there. Faye wakes up Felix telling him that someone is outside their cabin, and it sounds like they need help, or they're calling for help. Something's wrong, and she wants him to investigate. Felix does, but they never find anybody or see anything. So Felix just kind of brushes it off, and they go back to sleep. The next day, they decide to go outside, kind of explore around the outside of the cabin a little bit, map out the area, just kind of get some fresh air and have a little bit of exercise. That's when they find the dream catcher. Now, this isn't a normal dream catcher. This dream catcher is made out of twigs, bones, feather, twine, and it has some blood on it. Again, they brush it off. They think it's someone playing a prank. They think it's teenagers. It's gotta be something, right? It can't be anything too serious. But that night, Faye ends up having a nightmare, and this is when you learn that she has an undiagnosed sleeping disorder. So she actually talks in her sleep, she sleepwalks, and she has night terrors. And she's had these issues since she was a child. Then they start hearing voices. Faye hears her dead grandfather calling to her from outside the cabin, which is terrifying because he's not alive. Then Felix actually hears his mom's voice talking outside the cabin, but his mom is actually in Massachusetts, which Massachusetts and Colorado are very far apart. So again, very weird, very creepy. But these aren't the only voices that they end up hearing while they're there at the cabin. Between this person outside lurking around, the voices, and the dream catcher, Felix wants out. He wants to get out. He's done. They need to leave. This is it for him. He's done. This is not a good vacation. Just when things can't get any worse, while Faye is sleeping, Felix hears a voice talking. The voice is outside the cabin, but it's talking to Faye, and Faye is responding back in her sleep. This is really only the beginning of the nightmare that Felix and Faye have to deal with because of their little weekend cabin getaway. Okay, that's all I'm gonna tell you. That's it. That's the synopsis. Again, a lot happens. I mean, a lot more than I could even begin to explain in a video. This video would be 30 to 40 minutes if I went into depth on this book, because there's just so much to talk about that it's a lot. You're gonna have to read it for yourself if you want to know everything that happens. First off, I want to say I actually did read this story on No Sleep a while ago, like a really long time ago. It had to be years ago, but I never ended up finishing it, which is so weird that I never finished it. I don't know if it's because I just kind of forgot, or I don't know what happened. I got distracted maybe, but when I was reading this, I was like, wow, this does sound familiar, so I must have read it. I didn't know how it ended, so I was kind of happy about that because I was glad that it wasn't too repetitive for me. I remember really liking it when I was reading on No Sleep, and my opinion has not changed in the slightest. I still really like this. One thing I really love, and this is just a kind of small detail, I don't know if anyone actually cares about this, but the author is Felix Blackwell, but the main character is also Felix Blackwell. And I don't know why I like that so much. I think it's because it really feels like you're reading a true story, which is exactly what No Sleep prides itself on. When you are reading No Sleep stories in that subreddit, you are pretending that everything is real, even if it seems not real. That's just the goal of the subreddit, to believe everything you read and treat it as if it is true, which I love. I think that's fun. It adds to the atmosphere of the stories, and it kept that atmosphere by feeling like this was a true story from Felix. Another thing I really liked is I didn't feel like I was reading a No Sleep post. I did feel like this was an actual book. He didn't just copy and paste the No Sleep story and then slap a cover on it and sell it. It wasn't like that. It was very much a book, not just a No Sleep post. So I also really enjoyed that aspect of it, and I was happy to see it wasn't just like a copy and pasted thing. The plot is very interesting. I do feel like I have watched a movie similar to this before. I don't think it's exactly identical because there are some things in this book I don't think I've ever seen in a movie before, but there are hints of a horror movie that I have seen that is very reminiscent of this, and for some reason I cannot put my finger on what the movie is. I don't even really remember if I liked the movie, but I don't know what it is. I can't remember. If you have seen a movie that reminds you of this, please let me know in the comments down below, because it might be that movie. So help me out. With all that being said, I really did like this book. I think it's really good. I like the plot. I like the characters. I like the whole idea. I think it's really good. Anything that has to do with being out in the woods or the wilderness and being isolated really freaks me out. I'm not a camping person. I don't like camping. I don't like being outside at night like that in the dark, surrounded by things that you don't know. I don't like that. I never have. So this book does freak me out a little because it's just so creepy and eerie. And then they're hearing voices and seeing things, and that's also terrifying, especially if it's not, you know, normal things that you would end up hearing or seeing. I also find it really scary that everything is happening to his significant other. So his fiance, Faye, is pretty much the target throughout the whole book. And I can't really imagine what that's like, feeling so helpless and not being able to help your significant other in something this terrifying. That really freaks me out, and I don't love that because it really scares me, and then I end up trying to put myself in their shoes, like what I would do if it was my boyfriend, and then it freaks me out even more and raises my anxiety because I don't like thinking about things like that. So yeah, this book does a very good job at making you feel freaked out and creeped out and anxious and paranoid. I also did like that Felix is a non-believer in the supernatural. You know, there's always one in these kinds of books where the person just can't believe anything could be happening like this. But I do feel like it didn't take Felix too long to realize, oh, this is like not normal. Don't get me wrong, it still takes him a hot minute to figure things out, but it's not as much as some characters in books. I just hate when it takes them too long. They spend the whole book denying any sort of supernatural possibility, and then they're at the end, they're like, well, maybe you're right. And I'm like, yeah, we've been saying that the whole book. Get it together, think. I just don't like when characters in books refuse to believe in anything that can't be explained. Don't get me wrong, there is a good reason to be logical. I think you should be logical in situations like these. But there's a time when logical just doesn't make any sense anymore, and you have to go beyond logic, and you kind of just have to throw that out the window and then move on to other possibilities. And characters in these books don't like to do that. So I appreciate that Felix wasn't as annoying as most characters in these types of books are. The ending was interesting. It's not what I was expecting. I had this whole ending planned out in my head. I kind of knew where it was going. I had figured it out. I felt like I was like, yep, this is gonna be it. This is it. And then the ending happened and I was kind of like, oh, okay, that's not where I was going with it. It wasn't a bad ending. It was just kind of anticlimactic, if I'm being honest. It was just very, this is the ending. And I was kind of hoping for a ending, you know, like a whoop ending. You know what I'm talking about? But this was more just like ending. So it wasn't a bad ending. I didn't dislike it. It just was kind of shocking that that's the way it ended. I was just kind of like, oh, okay. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. I think it's really, really good. I'm a big fan of no sleep writers becoming authors and having their own books. I love that. I think that's so amazing. So honestly, good for Felix Blackwell. That's just such a cool thing to have your own book from something as innocent as No Sleep. I just think that's incredible, and the book was really, really good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed rereading it apparently because I did read it previously. Okay, I'm done talking. I feel like I rambled for 800 years about that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. It lets me know what kind of content you are enjoying from me, and then I can keep giving you that type of content. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. We can become friends and talk about books and horror and makeup and anime and a lot of things, because I do a lot of things on this channel, so you have options. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!